Marty, it's the end of 2025, and do you have
2024.
any? Oh, sorry, 2024.
Don't get ahead of yourself. Don't get ahead of
No,
yourself.
I'm getting way ahead of myself here. Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
I do. I always have the same New Year's Eve resolution, which is a simple one. Do a dry January, but then I try to extend it as long as possible. But I have a feeling that this year's dry January is going to be challenged because of you, my friend.
Because of me.
Yeah, because I think the viewers know, right? I'm coming to visit Clyde in BC on January 25th. So I suppose I could stay sober. We'll see how it goes. But quite honestly, I've had years where I extended right into like March, April. Go a long time.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, dry January is a pretty common thing, but yeah, of course, this year it's not just to visit me; it's to visit everybody. We're doing a live event for everybody who wants to come check that out. We're going to give more information on the specific bar that we'll be going to closer to the date. I actually want to go down there and make sure that they're okay with it.
Yeah.
before we set something up.
What's your resolution? You must have one too, or?
Well, yeah, I was about to say I was going to do the dry January, but it's only going to last until the 25th.
Well, actually, we could start. We could do 25 to 25, which would mean we'd have to start now. We're off to a bad start.
Really that one. But the other one, obviously, the fitness one. Most people get into a fitness thing, but they always set their bar way too high. Mine is just I want to, watch calories in and just make sure I'm doing more cardio and more calories out, that sort of thing. That's a real simple one.
And a popular fitness one early in the new year, lately, is the carnivore diet, right? But carnivore diet is so expensive. I mean, if you're just going to do meat, look at what their liberals have ruined. They've even ruined dieting. We can't, way to go, Trudeau. You ruined everything. We can't even diet properly.
Well, they're helping with the no calorie diet.
Yeah. Actually, I don't want to divulge too much information, but I do have one of my relatives, one of my brothers-in-law. I have lots of brothers-in-law, but one of my brothers-in-law is doing the Ozempic, and it's been remarkable for him. It's been absolutely mind-blowing, to see him this week and to see how much weight he lost on Ozempic. It was crazy. I have no idea how Ozempic works. I have no idea how it works.
I was reading some actual warnings about that people should be very careful. Ozempic, that was the one that was first for diabetics, right? It was
and then I asked him, is it a combination of the medication and a special kind of diet, and apparently not. It literally curbs his appetite and makes him digest or whatever metabolize differently, and it's almost effortless. I mean, he's lost 35 pounds effortlessly. I'm like,
well, do you know? Well, so this has been a big thing in California, actually. All the celebrity types are taking this stuff, and they're shedding off tons of weight, but in very unhealthy ways, and with some permanent damage. JP Sears did a show about it. You know who JP Sears is? Usually does comedy making fun of lefties and
I met him. I met JP this summer.
Oh, fantastic! He's amazing. But he's also
at a Bitcoin conference is where I met him. But he's a fit guy. He's muscular, he's fit, right? So what was his thoughts on it? Or he was
warning people, really do not take this, that it's very dangerous. It could be bad for you. And people are suffering some severe long-term damage because of it. So maybe give your
I think in the case of my brother-in-law, the good will probably outweigh the bad. Like everything in life. I mean, there's a side effect, but I mean, for him, if this leads him to lose 50 pounds, I will say pretty much without a doubt that the good will have outweighed the bad, unless he rebounds and regains the 50. We'll see. Time will tell.
Yeah. But, the best way to do it is just eat healthy and get your good amount of exercise in. That's always the way
for me. It's exercise. I'm a big exerciser. I've taken a beating on exercise this year. Literally, it's weird, but that thumb infection It hurt my hand. It meant that when I was going to the gym, that hand was useless, and then it set me back for 6 weeks, and then I fell off the routine, and I had a hard time getting back onto the routine. But I agree with you. It's routine, and then for me personally, no matter if I'm exercising hard, whether it's hitting the gym or walking or kayaking, or as long as I'm active, I can pretty much eat a lot of calories. If I become sedentary, then and we talked about this, right? This is one of the, weirdly, in Canada, the life expectancy of Canadians has gone down. Actually, I don't think we talked about that in detail in
No,
the
not
last
in
few
any
months.
detail.
Yeah, the stats came out very late in the year, like about 3 weeks ago. I talked about it briefly. The life expectancy of Canadians peaked in 2020, like just around COVID, and then people go, well, it's just COVID that killed people. It's like, no, the life expectancy that's published by the government is life expectancy at birth. So a kid born today has a lower life expectancy than a kid born 10 years ago. And
Wow.
so it's and the actuaries who predict this, they're factoring in future events, right? So I think they're factoring in I think our health is getting worse. I think, the advances in medicine have been offset by the food, the poisons we eat, the chemicals. I think they're factoring that in there. I'm pretty sure they're factoring medically assisted suicide. I think they're already factoring that in the future. Canadians won't live as long because we'll be provided that option. Isn't that sick? Like, that's a weird, I think they're factoring living in tents for the poor people instead of apartments. I think they're factoring in the opioid epidemic. They're factoring a lot of things. So, and I'll say one last thing and we're done on this topic, and the life expectancy is not the same across Canada. And the healthiest people are definitely here out west. We live longer than our counterparts in New Brunswickers. Apparently, like New Brunswickers, I don't know what they're doing over there. I think they smoke too much, and I think they drink too much, and they do something. But New Brunswickers live about 2 years less than everybody else.
Yeah, actually, my wife and I were talking about it. We were at the Dollarama just today, and my wife's like, "Hey, look, they still sell ashtrays here." She's like, "Do you ever see any people smoking? Like, we barely see people smoking anymore. It's kind of rare."
I see vaping. I see a lot of vaping. A lot of vaping is still. Well, hey, I mean, talk about weird. Like, cars used to have ashtrays, Clyde. Clyde, there used to be ashtrays in the armrest on planes, right? Can you imagine? Like, you're sitting on a plane 40 years ago, and you could smoke on a plane. Like, yeah,
things have changed. Things have definitely changed.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to the healthy lifestyle, a lot of people in the West are doing outdoor activities and exercises, things like that. And
Skiing.
even people come from other provinces, all the way from even Ottawa, to see British Columbia and some of the great places where people can go. And while Justin Trudeau obviously is no stranger to British Columbia, and he's doing the same thing out on vacation, got a run-in with somebody in the parking lot of the ski resort, and this is how that went.
Mr. Prime Minister. Yeah. Please get the fuck out of BC.
Have a wonderful day, man.
Yeah, you suck.
You suck. This is sentiment from all Canadians, pretty much at this point. Nobody appreciates the guy. Nobody wants to see him around. It's just ridiculous.
What part of BC is he in? I'm not familiar.
So that's Kelowna, BC. So I got this. So
he's not at the super big hills, right? Like
no, he's not in Whistler. He's not in Big White or any of that stuff. So Justin Trudeau's private jet in Kelowna, BC this morning, and then you start to see this stuff popping up all over social media now, ranting and raving in the Coots. Rant to some bozo at Red Mountain. I've never been so angry after a day at Red Mountain. Some self-important big shot showed up with his entourage of security, and they absolutely ruined the entire experience for everyone else. This guy and his goons thought that they're too good to wait in line, cutting ahead of families and kids like they owned the lifts. I don't even know who he was, but the arrogance was disgusting. who the hell shows up at the public ski hill and acts like that? Well, Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada. That's exactly who.
He's the, think of the leaders recently. Like, he's the only one that you hear about who's upsetting people, right? Like, well, first of all, he's addicted to going on vacations. Like we make fun of him, right? We're tired of him going on vacation. Well, we're tired of him, but at the same time, like we've joked about, I quite honestly, at this point, I'll pay him to stay on vacation.
Stay away.
Yeah, stay away. But like I don't hear about Poilievre making a big deal, or Jagmeet Singh, or anybody else. And none of the premiers of everybody else seems to be able to live like a normal human being. But nope, not Trudeau. Trudeau's got
well, not only that, he'll insert himself into areas where it's like, get the hell out of the way.
Yeah.
Just being there is a problem, and it's causing people not to be able to do what they were doing in the first place. This is a famous situation of Trudeau showing up when there was flooding happening, and people were trying to put in sandbags. And what happened? Well, he just in the way.
People picking up bags. I've been waiting in line down the road for 30 minutes while you've been here soaking up the race. Thank you.
Excuse me.
You're not getting my vote. This is a free country. It's a free country, and I'm trying to speak to him, and he won't even acknowledge me.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm sorry for your challenge.
It's not my challenge. I'm a volunteer trying to help someone save their home.
Sir, we've been filling sandbags as well.
Yeah.
Okay?
And while you're here, nobody can pick up.
I am here.
While you're here, no one can pick
I don't
up
know
sand.
that, sir. I'm sorry.
Well, why don't you make yourself aware?
Why don't you make yourself aware? So this is the situation. He throws himself in there for a photo op. This is just like the character of this man, a total narcissist. He just wants to, have the one picture of him half filling a sandbag while other people are trying to save their homes. It's analogous to his entire 9 years as Prime Minister of Canada.
And he's not the only one who does this, right? I mean, a few others have done it. I can think of other politicians who've done it. To their defense, but it's a very weak defense. They're damned if they do, and they're damned if they don't, right? Like I remember when Jasper was burning, for instance, people said, like, how come Trudeau's not there? But then at the same time, it's like, well, don't go there. What can you do? And if you do decide to go there, then do the minimum interference. Be aware, right? So that gentleman brought up a really great point. I mean, the river's coming up real fast. We're trying to load the sandbags. And while you're here, Trudeau, the rest of us can't do our job. So do your photo op, get the heck out. Better yet, don't do your photo op here. Do your photo op somewhere else. Like go do it
on Main Street where nobody is. Main
Street. Go at the evacuation center and go talk to people. Go console people, but don't get in the way of people trying to. Yeah, that man speaks for a lot of people when he was frustrated. I don't know about you, but I'd be snapping. I like if I was trying to shovel and Trudeau walked in, oh man, I'd snap. I would snap. Like,
there's been a lot of people that you don't want.
Yeah,
you don't want people holding shovels when Justin Trudeau shows up. That's never going to end well.
No,
that's not going to end well. But speaking of shovels and Trudeau, he's been digging his own grave. That's really what he's been doing in the past recent amount of time. It looks like his own party doesn't want him. I mean, this is mainstream news now, and nobody's even shy about it. Vast majority of Liberal caucus want Trudeau to resign. And there's a good reason behind it. They realize that they're not going to get elected with him as leader, and this is really what it's come down to for a number of MPs, especially in the East Coast. A number of the MPs have come forward and they said, "Listen, my constituents are telling me we like you, but if Trudeau's your leader, we're not having you. We don't want you. We're going to vote elsewhere." End of story.
I think it's even worse than that, right? I mean, I saw the 338 poll that comes out on Sunday, and like if you zoom out of Canada and you try and see the red where Trudeau's still hanging on, like there's a little bit of red in Montreal, a little bit of red in Toronto. I don't even think you guys have any red in BC. We don't. Weirdly, in Alberta, there's still there's an NDP trending. Yeah, exactly. Like
sliver, one seat in all of British Columbia, they think will go to a Liberal.
Yeah,
One
and
seat.
look at that number at the top left or top right, Clyde. Like last week was the first week that was officially predicted. That's the Bloc Quebecois coming in second. Like that's if we had an election tomorrow morning, this is a very high likelihood. These guys haven't been wrong very often on the elections, right? So if we
No,
had
and they
an
don't
election,
seem very partisan. It's not like the Angus Reid polls.
no,
that
because
kind of stuff.
what they do is they aggregate, right? He takes all the other polls and then he just sort of does an average, and he even shows his work. So he's saying that if we had an election tomorrow, the Conservatives would have that's a super majority, right? That's 66% of the vote, which makes me nervous. I'm on the record as saying that. I mean, people say, what's the difference between a majority and a super majority? I'm like,
Well, there's
you're
really
right.
no opposition in a supermajority.
There's no opposition, and there's no opposition in a majority. Does a supermajority make it easier to pass rules? No, it doesn't. But it gives a sense of do no wrong to some politicians, right? Some politicians, it can go to their head, anyways. But yeah, we would be in a weird situation with the Bloc being in the opposition. And but we've had that, and again, I've had people say, well, that the people are opposed at the Bloc because they are a separatist party. I'm like, yeah, that's not a valid reason to not allow them to run in politics. I mean, the Bloc has as much of a right to the Quebecers have as much right to elect a separatist party as Alberta would. So,
people look at it like, well, and this isn't exactly my sentiment, but I hear this a lot on Twitter.
Yeah.
People saying, well, the Bloc Quebecois, why should they even be allowed to be a federal party if they don't believe in the federal, Union of Canada? Like,
yeah.
And that's a valid argument, but legally you could have any party with any stance run in any election, and that's it.
And the reason I have to be careful on my sentiment is because in Alberta, we had a party called the Reform Party that became popular in the 1990s. And for all intents purposes, it was a pretty much an Alberta-focused, almost separatist party. So, but anyways, that's a different conversation. The interesting conversation is, yeah, if an election's held tomorrow, the Liberals are non-existent, which is manifesting itself. I mean, some of the MPs, that's what they're saying. They're saying, well, I'm going along with the will of my people. I'm like, no, you're not. Like Ken McDonald, right? We've talked about him in Newfoundland. Like, dude, if you were really going along with the will of your people, you would have voted non-confidence like 2 years ago, not just recently.
You wouldn't have voted with your party.
Yeah.
Right. Like these guys are trying to. This is the fast one that's trying to be. They're trying to pull on Canadians right now. Is, oh, well, we want to get rid of Trudeau so that we could get elected and we'll be totally good guys. As if they didn't vote for all of the stuff and vote right down party lines on everything.
Yeah.
Like they're responsible for that. And yeah, they're backbenchers, but whatever. You guys are responsible for everything that the Liberals were able to accomplish. And they should be punished for that. Like when I say punished, I mean, they should be punished in the polls. And I would encourage it. And this is why I've been saying to people, no. I actually jumped on the hashtag I stand with Trudeau trend because, yeah, I stand with Trudeau. I think he should go down with the ship. I don't think he should be able to jump on a lifeboat and take off and then let the rest of the Liberals become some other thing. No, I want him to ride that one off right into the sunset and right to the bottom of the ocean. That's it.
Yeah. I'm with you 90% of the way on that one. I mean, I'm at, could I hurt more under the Liberals? No, I've gotten used to the pain. So can I tolerate the pain another 8 months? Sure. But and part of me would love nothing more than to see them, like you said, get reduced to absolutely nothing. But then the other part of me is that my kids came here this week to celebrate Christmas, and it's still a topic that we talk. It hits me hard. That's like, I'm going to be honest. Like when I'm talking to my kids and we're having a chat around a dinner table, and they're telling me about we're talking about rent, and like one of my boys says, like, he doesn't think he'll ever own a house. And I'd like to get working on reversing that, right? Bringing in Pierre and, can you and I handle
this lends to my point.
Yeah.
This actually lends to my point. The people who are governing Canada, they'll have a better chance of remaining
fixing
representatives.
the problem. Yeah.
And they won't be able to fix it. the Liberals, they're inept. They shouldn't be able to get voted back in. And Justin Trudeau is not gonna, if he steps down, he'll actually help them stay in their positions. That's my point. I want him to take them out completely. If Justin Trudeau resigns tomorrow, it changes nothing about affordability, about all of these things. What we need is to get rid of that government. We need an election. And once we have that election, we're better off to have Trudeau go up against Pierre Poilievre, because he'll be a bumbling fool on the debate stage, and he can go on his record.
No, we're saying the same thing. So, but would it upset you though if there was a real defeat, let's say next, in February, and we went to an election in February? No, I don't think an election in February at this point would change the outcome. I don't think it's worse now than it could. It can't get worse for the Liberals. Let's put it that way. I don't think it can get worse for the Liberals.
And there's discussion of the possibility of the prorogation. So Justin Trudeau proroguing government in order to stretch it out even all the way till 2025 in October. But honestly, if he were to do that would destroy the Liberals. Nobody wants them there. No. But there is the possibility that he might try to prorogue in order to do a leadership campaign so they could properly get a leader. And I think people might honestly forgive the Liberals for doing that. I don't think it's right, but people want an election now.
I actually looked into this. I was curious about how many times government has been prorogued in the last 20 years. And from best I can tell, Trudeau did it once during the WE scandal. So what WE scandal, that was Trudeau prorogued then because the heat was just getting huge. It looks like Harper did it about 3 times. Same thing for some scandals that he was having a hard time managing. Chrétien had done it a couple of times. So it's been done. It's been done, right? We know it's been done and no party has the stronghold on that. And I agree. I think Trudeau, if he hasn't stepped down voluntarily in January, proroguing makes sense because then they can have a nice little leadership debate. And then I was trying to find if there were reasons why they wouldn't prorogue. And one of the things I was looking into today is I looked at all the bills. There's still about 50 bills that are moving their way through the House of Commons in one way, shape, or another. And I could only see about 3. I didn't see any that stood out to me as super near and dear to Trudeau. You know what I mean? A
lot of people might say Bill C-63 is, but look at how they broke it up. Yeah. They broke it up because they really wanted to just get one portion of it through. They scrapped most of the language that people didn't like in it, put it into a second thing, and they're focusing on the one side of it.
Yeah,
I still don't even think it'll pass as it is.
No, so it's not C-63, which is probably it's not the most advanced bills. I'm going by memory, but I think the only bill that is past second reading right now is C-26, which is also a variation on internet censorship. It was one of the ones where they want to give broader powers to the CRTC or blah, blah, blah. More money from South Park. 26, 27 is not moving very much. So those are the few. Oh, what's the one? 65, the one where they wanted to change the Election Act. Same thing. I think that one will they wouldn't make that a hill to die on because the chief electoral officer had already said that if Bill C-65 passes, he is not pushing the election past the 25th. So there's nothing in the bills. Actually, I looked at a few sad bills. Can you believe there's still a bill in the House of Commons? Don't quote me on the number, but I think it's C-11 or C-12. There's still an act. They've been to try and get clean water on First Nations. I feel so bad for First Nations. That bill was introduced in 2022. It's been 2 years trying to move it forward. It's going nowhere. It was originally promised in 2015. When I was doing that research for that tweet this morning, I stumbled upon that one, and it's just another example of the Liberal incompetence.
Total incompetence. Yeah. And well, I mean, they're hypocrites. They're hypocrites, and no better than Trudeau himself. So I put this one out there this past week. This is Trudeau back when Harper was in power talking about prorogation.
gives us an opportunity to look back at prorogation and of all that it is a symptom of, and ask ourselves some serious questions about what we are doing here in this room. So troubling to have seen over the past 4 years a culture of division, of cynicism, of secrecy, of lack of accountability permeate this house in its entirety. And the 2 prorogations in 2 years to avoid a vote of non-confidence that would have surely brought this government down. That's why we're talking about prorogation today.
It's just comical at this point.
Back in those days, I mean, he's an extreme backbencher at that point. Like, backbench literally means you're like, front bench is the ministers, backbench is pretty much anybody else there. He's such a backbencher. He's on the wall. Like,
he's got the wall behind him.
That's last row, right? And I wonder who was his boss in those days. Would that have been that's probably such an old video. What year did you say that was? Roughly?
I don't even know what year that was.
I think that must have been about 1994, 95, like under the Chrétien Liberals, and oh God. Yeah. Anyways, I think I think there's a high likelihood he'll prorogue Parliament. And that's another thing. Our rules in Canada, our rules, we're a common law country, right? We're a country where the laws are based on precedents. So they're not hard written. So the rules on prorogation, the rules on the powers of the governor general, like I looked at that in detail last week. Like, can the governor general actually dissolve government? And they only
that's in their powers, is it not?
Yeah, but that's what I was getting to. It's in their traditional powers, but it's not legally written, right? It's like it's a tradition. It's respected because it once happened. But a lot of our rules are so hard to define. Like people ask me that, like, can they prorogue indefinitely? Can they do this? Can they do that? It's like there's no answer. It's like our courts, right? It has to be, they do it, and then if they get away with it, then like if Trudeau prorogues Parliament, like you just said now, and does it until October 25th, then somehow or other that'll become a precedent, and future governments will be able to say, well, he did it once, so therefore we can do it, right? Like as long as we've had our democracy, the rules are seriously not that well defined. It's crazy.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
So here's the deal: if they don't prorogue, Mr. Tough Guy in Parliament, Jagmeet Singh, has said that he's going to defeat the government. He was even asked on the street by a couple of guys that were recording.
Oh, I didn't see this.
They posted it online. Well, just listen to what he has to say here.
So when is the election going to happen? So I guess the first day we have will be sometime. It depends on when we get our day, our opposition day. So it'll be sometime between we come back to the government or when we come back to Parliament. January? Yeah, so January. Between January and it should be in February. So the earliest it could be, depending on when we get our date, it could be between January and the latest could be March. It'll be sometime between that. So our date is scheduled, but sometimes they change it on us. It could be so end of January when we come back. Depends on when we get our slot. So we have one opposition motion, and we're basically going to use it for this. Let's see.
We found him on the street apparently because his office is never open. Amazing Zoltan, Alex. Thank you for breaking that story. He broke the story that they're broke. And even the allocation of their resources that they have, they say they're doing things that they can't even afford to keep their own offices open. But yeah, he's putting it out there that he will take down the government. This is what he's doing. I mean, he wrote his treatise.
Well, he wrote it, and so have other MPs now. Like I've seen, I think it was yesterday or the day before, there was an MP that also suggested that they're going to try to bring it up at one of the committees. Like I always think of committees as, the finance committee and stuff like that, but there's an ability to pass a motion in a committee where the committee says it doesn't have confidence in the government. I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's cute. So you do that. But then what do you do with that motion? Then what happens is that the committees have to then draft a report of what they've been discussing and then present it into the House of Commons. So then this MP is saying, we control this committee. We're going to pass a motion in our committee that says we have no confidence in the government. And then when we table the minutes of our committee during the parliamentary session, we'll be on the record as saying, you know, this committee on whatever you want to call it, you know.
But that's just saying it. There's no procedure to follow.
There's no procedure, but I mean, but again, it's all interesting, right? It's all to build up to the fact that, hey, you got letters from MPs, you got committees.
I think it's posturing, Marty. Like I was saying.
No, but this is a conservative MP saying this. I'm like, okay, I'm on board with them, but I'm still going. I fail to understand what you're going to accomplish, but sure, you know.
Well, I think it drives headlines and it gets more attention on them, and then in their own writing, their guys are going, yeah, our guy's doing a thing, you know. Rah it doesn't actually get us an election. That's the sad part, and that is the reality of the matter. But when it comes to Jagmeet Singh, I think he's trying to go out of this looking like, I was the guy who took down the government. Everybody hates Trudeau. I was the one who did it. Like, even though he's the one who has been propping him up for a year and a half. It's crazy.
Can you imagine? He's going to write his memoirs when he's all said and done. Say, I'm the guy who got $10 daycare. I'm the guy who got the GST. He's going to take credit for all those things, and then he'll say, yeah. And then when I got all those things and we were satisfied that the work was done, then we got rid of Trudeau. Wow. Yeah, the hubris in that guy. Like, he's just
it's unreal. It's unreal. But you know it. You know it's exactly what he's gonna do. Just like Trudeau. Trudeau's gonna walk away from this and he's gonna say he has this legacy. The Liberals are already doing it. Look at all the things we've accomplished. They've done nothing. They've spent more money than any other government in our history of our nation, and doubled our national debt, put us in this crazy amount of debt, and we have nothing to show for it.
Well, Clyde, you're
nothing.
You're reading my mind on two things that happened again this week. The Liberals put in their year-end advertising and what I would call their first 2025 campaign advertising. They're advertising, right? And so they put out two videos this week, and they're lousy videos. They're just what you described, right? Like, when they try to put out a video that says, "Hey, look at how good we are," it's embarrassing. It's completely embarrassing. Like, it's the same. Yeah, we brought in extra health care to seniors over the age of 80. We brought in $10 daycare that almost nobody gets advantage of. What else? I
don't know if I can show the video because they always use copyright music on them. But yeah, they're basically doing a whole list, universal dental care plans and all of these things that have done nothing for anybody. I even have viewers, they chime in and they'll say things like, you know, this dental plan, all it's ever gotten me was I got a cleaning and some x-rays, and I'm waiting to be approved for any of the work. So now I know what's wrong with my teeth. I can't get it done though. And the plan is just, they're just sitting there.
And same with $10 daycare. People said, yeah, we know it exists, but we can't be bothered because the waiting list is 14 years, and by then my kids will be in university. So I'll go with the $20 daycare. Like 10. And by the way, folks, right? And you all know this, right? You get what you pay for. Like, if you drop off your kid at a daycare that is subsidized by the federal government, that then turns around and charges you $10, man, like scrounge a little harder to put your kids in some. Better yet, have one parent stay home and take care of the kids. That's what I say, you know. But $10 daycare, folks, no. Well, we know what I know what $10 daycare results in. We had an absolute fiasco at a $10 daycare last year here in Alberta, where they gave food poisoning to 300 kids, and it caused a big. That was a fiasco, man. That was last year. And it was traced back to poor food handling and all sorts of things. And you know, and that's, yeah, it's not an aha moment, because I don't like seeing kids getting hurt. Like, I don't want kids to get hurt to make a point about Liberal incompetence, but that's what happened. You know, that's what happened.
That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. You know, you make perfect sense here. The government is terrible at running everything. Why would you put the most precious people in your life, your
Well,
children?
what have you and I said, right? Bet against the government, right? I mean, if they're subsidizing some radio station in Toronto or some telecommunication firm in Montreal,
Short their
'em.
stocks.
Short their stocks. Absolutely.
You'll make a killing.
Yeah.
You'll make a lot of money. That's
Yeah.
for sure. It's crazy. Yeah, and just like the nepotism and all of this that's been coming out of this government is just unbelievable. Now we're in a situation where the Canadian government we're tanking. Our economics are not looking good. We're seeing really, really bad results because of the Liberal Party. And in response to this, we talked about this on the last show, how, Nova Scotia, or sorry, not Nova Scotia, it was Newfoundland was once a British colony. They went broke, and then they came pleading to the Canadians and said, can we be part of the union? Well, a similar situation is happening with the US right now, and it's incidental. So not everybody is keen on this. It's a joke, by the way, for everybody who doesn't know that it's a joke. It's a joke, but it's a funny joke, and it's one that's getting under a lot of the right people's skin in this situation. Eric Trump posting this one out there. We're so back. Here's Donald Trump looking at a meme on his phone, and he puts it up on the screen. It's an online shopping cart with Canada, Greenland, and the Panama Canal, because Trump is playing hardball. He's playing hardball. He put this post up on his Truth Social, where he talked about the Panama Canal and how China has basically control over it, even though the US ought to be the ones controlling it. They were the ones who built the canal, all of that. And then he says also to the Governor Justin Trudeau of Canada, whose citizens' taxes are far too high, but Canada was to become if Canada was to become our 51st state, their taxes would be cut by more than 60%. Their businesses would do immediately double in size, and they would be militarily protected like no other country anywhere in the world. And then goes on to talk about taking over Greenland as well. But this is an interesting one, because the sentiment is kind of all over the place. Here's a perfect example of it. Here's Bruce McConnell saying Donald Trump is offering Canada a 60% tax reduction and economic boom if Canadians become the 51st state in the US. We would be able to keep our emergency rooms open. The dollars we earn would also have more value than the weak Canadian dollar. Pretty sad when a passing joke starts sounding so appealing.
Yeah. I mean, I still stand by some of my earlier comments. I know that in the short term, joining the US would solve a lot of problems for Canada. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I even like I said, I told my sons, go to the US. You're better off there than you would here. But part of me also thinks that the problems that we would solve by joining the US, we could solve ourselves, right? Like, people say, hey, we get a tax break. Why am I paying so much for taxes in Canada? We should be able to, give ourselves a tax break, kickstart our economy, and do all those things. So I'm the more complicated things is changing our constitution and giving us really entrenching our freedoms and stuff like that. But now on that
that's
note,
difficult, and it's a turnkey go if we just entered the United States. That's the thing.
Totally.
And I'm not advocating for it. And this is the thing. It's been a joke. It's a running joke. I did say, yes, I'm a dual citizen. So at the end of the day, I mean, it wouldn't hurt me either way. It would just have a lot more people have all the same privileges that I have to be able to go on either side.
Now, I'd like to move into it though. If it really starts going down that way, then I'd like to ease into it. And one of the ways I'd like to ease into it is to do something like Europe tried, right? The European Union. So maybe North America does the North American Union. Maybe Mexico, Canada, and the US agree to a common currency and a more open border, and then practice this whole idea and see, then we get to see, does it improve our life overnight? Because we know in Europe, some countries regretted that union after the fact and others enjoyed it. So
you sound a lot like Mr. Wonderful right now,
Marty. Did he suggest? Don't tell me he suggested that.
Let's have a listen.
There's 41 million Canadians, basically the population of California, sitting on the world's largest amounts of all resources, including the most important, energy and water. Canadians over the holidays, the last 2 days, have been talking about this. They want to hear more. And so, there's obviously a lot of issues, more details, but what this could be is the beginning of an economic union. Think about the power of combining the two economies, erasing the border between Canada and the United States, and putting all that resource up to the northern borders where China and Russia are knocking on the door. So secure that, give a common currency, figure out taxes across the board, get everything trading both ways, create a new, almost EU-like passport. I like this idea, and at least half of Canadians are interested. The problem is the government's collapsing in Canada right now. Nobody wants Trudeau to negotiate this deal. I don't want him doing it for me, so I'm going to go to Mar-a-Lago. I'll start the narrative. The 41 million Canadians, I think most of them would trust me on this deal.
There's two major responses on this one. People are pissed that he's saying this, and people are excited that he's saying this. Some people that are pissed that he's saying this are saying it from the aspect of being, patriotic, and they don't want to be a part of that, and they don't want that. Some people are even on the side when, I don't know if you recall, like we're going like almost 20 years ago, people were saying that there was this push to create the American Union with a new currency called the Amero, and this could usher in all kinds of other things that are unsavory that you hear out of the likes of people from World Economic Forum and stuff. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, okay. I hadn't heard that video. So yes, it's a common idea. Did I come up with the idea on my own? No. I've heard of it in the past, but it hasn't been tried for a couple of reasons. I mean, there is a problem with the fact that we are this giant geography with very few people. So it is appealing to take us over, but if you take us over and we simply become the 51st state, we would still be a 51st state with no power. I mean, is being Canada that much worse than being, let's say, Iowa, right? I don't know. That's one aspect. The other aspect that I really thought about a lot in the last little while is I asked this to people. I'm like, this talk is interesting. It's because of Donald Trump. If this idea had been bounced a mere, say, 4 years ago at the beginning of the Biden administration, would you have been as excited about the opportunity? And the reason I ask that question is I also like to remind people that the insanity that happens in Canada can also happen to the US. I mean, Trump is, sure, we love Trump right now, but in 4 years from now, who replaces Trump? They're not immune to that, right? They could still reelect
here's the other.
They could reelect Kamala Harris in 4 years, for all we know.
So everybody's been asking the opinions of Canada about this whole idea of uniting Canada with the United States.
Yeah,
many Americans are like, hell no.
Why?
Why would we want another giant liberal voting bloc? In our country where we just struggled so hard to get Donald Trump in? Why would we want to bring in another California? Why would we want that?
Right.
And so that's a valid point. That's a valid point for
the
Americans to say, screw that. We don't want you. And we don't want you with all your problems. We've got enough of our own problems. Look at what you've done to your country. So you destroy your own country and then you just get a free pass because you get us to pay for it? What are you, New York? You know what I mean? I get it.
You're right. We would be like California. It'd be like 40 million votes. And how many electoral colleges? Like, American states would fight this forever and ever. Texas would not allow us in because Texas would be upset that we're bigger, or Alaska. Texas and Alaska fight for, they'd be like, no, hell no, we're not allowing a state to be bigger in size. So they'd fight it. Texas would say, yeah, we're not allowing another California. But okay, sure, we'll take their 40 million votes, but we're not giving them like 20 electoral colleges. Yeah, it's not a done deal, right? Like admitting us to the. I never even thought of it that way. Are Americans in favor? Makes sense that they wouldn't be. Makes total sense. So, yeah.
And that's it. So having a good view of how it is on both sides of that. So this really does give the indication that this is just a ribbing. It's a joke. It's not serious. Don't take it serious. That's where it ends. That's really where it ends.
Same with Greenland. Don't take that seriously. I mean, he does, he's never needed Greenland to protect from Russia or anything like that in the past. We have enough, like Americans are more than welcome to put radar stations on our islands and right across from Greenland or whatever. I mean, they've already got that. Panama is more interesting. And again, Panama, Trump makes it sound like they built it and gave it up. Yeah, you built it, you engineered it. Sure, you took casualties, but you kind of gave it up willingly and voluntarily. I don't quite buy the argument. Actually, interesting story. I've been to Panama, and I was in Panama, and my taxi driver's name was Luis McDonald, and I remember saying, that's an interesting name. Your last name is McDonald, and that's what he was. He was like a descendant of an American who had helped build the Panama Canal. So, anyways, fascinating thing. I've been it's a cool thing to see the Panama Canal. It's a very cool thing. Very cool thing.
Yeah, I'll have to make that a trip one of these days. I never even considered that as a
me and Karen did the classic thing. Well, I don't know if it's classic, but we were on the Atlantic side. We dipped our toes in the water on the Atlantic, and then we hired Luis, our taxi driver, and he drove us across Panama. We visited the canal and did other things, and then we went to the Pacific side and dipped our toes there. So dipped our toes in both oceans.
That's
within
cool.
like
how
5 hours.
Oh, how wide is it?
Like an hour and a half to drive across. Like
holy cow.
If you got a guy like Luis, right? And actually, I remember that was one of the things. Like he kept passing. I'm like, holy God, I'm taking my life in my own hands here, or putting my life in his hands. Yeah.
I had no idea 38,000 Americans died putting that thing together.
For two reasons, right? One was a lot of them just died of accidents. Like back in those days, bodies, if a bulldozer pushed over and you were in the wrong way and you got knocked over, not a lot of workers had fluorescent orange vests, let's put it that way.
Right. OSHA wasn't on every site. Yeah, I gotcha.
No, but I think the number one killer was not actually industrial accidents. I think the number one killer was malaria.
Oh, okay.
I think I'd have to look into it, but I think that was the real number one killer. I mean, what year was it built? Probably turn of the century, like 1900s. Malaria would have just killed a shit ton of people.
Oh wow, that's horrible. Yeah. And I think we've pretty much eradicated malaria in North America anyway.
It is eradicated, but it's not definitely not around the world. I've traveled. The last time I've been to South America many times, and I've taken you have to take malaria pills. Malaria pills are still common for traveling in South America.
Oh, okay.
They're terrible. They're big fat pills. You take them daily. It's not like a vaccine or anything like that. You just take them while you're down there, and upsets the crap out of your stomach. And anyways, that's another weird thing for me, right? I used to take vaccines. Like I'm a scientist, right? By trade, I'm a chemical engineer. I'm a scientist. And I was never afraid of vaccines. Like when I look in my history, if my work said, "Hey, Marty, you're going to Ecuador for 3 weeks for work," I'd go to the pharmacy and say, "What vaccines do I need? I need yellow fever and whatever." Done. My whole opinion on that has changed so dramatically. If I had to travel down there tomorrow and somebody told me I needed a vaccine, I'd tell you honestly, I'd hesitate. I'd have second thoughts. What happened during COVID, man, was a game changer for me. I don't trust the medical community. I don't trust science. I trust science, but I don't trust science with a dollar sign in front of it. I absolutely don't trust politicians. Like I was red pilled. Now I'm like beyond red pilled, right? What am I now? I'm not black pilled yet, but I'm getting there.
No, yeah, I stay away from that black pill, but we do know that the immunity that was going around during COVID was immunity from liability. That's about the only immunity that was ever given out to anybody at the time. But you know, what makes me sick to my stomach sometimes is looking at our economy here in Canada, really, where it's gone. And I put out a video this week just saying, because, like, you know, slow news week, I wanted to prompt more conversations. What are people talking about? And I put this video together, just a short, to say Harper was right. Harper was totally right. You know, we have all this like blame going around, people saying, we've heard this on Parliament, you know, blaming Harper for everything that they've ever done. They're even talking about possibly doing it again, blaming Harper after 9 years. And then it turns out, well, he was absolutely right.
Would it worry you to go into deficit in this current climate to, as you say, put more people to work?
The commitment needs to be a commitment to grow the economy, and the budget will balance itself.
And Trudeau's deficits will not be small.
No.
Mr. Trudeau has made tens of billions of dollars of spending promises.
Interest rates are at historic lows, Glenn.
He said the budget will balance itself. He has no idea what he is talking about when it comes to these things. That's why you could be sure that his small deficits will become large deficits and would get Canada into the same pickle of high taxes and program cuts that we had under the last Liberal government.
And that's where we're at. We are back there. We're at the point where we're talking about they're talking about the Conservatives are going to come in and start cutting programs. Yeah, because that's the only thing we can do.
Trudeau ran, don't quote me on the numbers, but I know for a fact he's never run a balanced budget. Never, right? So his first deficit, like when in 2015, he's like, 3 small deficits, and then I'll go back to balanced budgets. And his definition of small deficits were 10 billion. Sure, he did 10 billion in 16 and 17. Then he went 20. Then COVID was $320 billion deficit. Lately, like, we're at the point where we're not even shocked when he says, like they said last month, right? 62 billion doesn't even shock us anymore. It should. He's never run a balanced budget. He's accumulated over $600 billion in additional debt, which is the deficits. By the way, that budgets will balance themselves. That is a quote from what's the famous economist, American one?
Maynard Keynes?
No, the popular one there, the yellow pencil.
Not Milton Friedman.
Milton Friedman is the one who said government budgets always balance themselves, but he explained it properly, meaning you, the taxpayer, pays the difference. So he's like, the government will, whatever the government spends, the government will balance by borrowing or printing the rest. So Milton explained it, and so I don't know if Trudeau was stealing the quote from him, but when Friedman said budgets balance themselves, he was being extremely sarcastic, saying, you, the taxpayer, make sure that they're balanced because you're on the hook for the borrowed money and the printed money and the. Basically, he was saying that they balance themselves because there's no mechanism to actually stop a government from overspending.
No.
So, you know, and it's
I mean, there is in the United States, they put in what they call the ceiling, the debt ceiling.
Yeah.
But every 6 months they get together and they vote on increasing the debt ceiling.
Which they are voting on it right now, right? They're
every 6 months. And it's always like, we're going to shut down all government if this doesn't get increased. It's like, shut down government. That's good. That's really good. But they tried to put in a mechanism to stop them from being able to do that, and it didn't work. They just extend the glass ceiling is what it is.
Yeah, there's no magic credit card that we can cut up, right? We actually, I love that clip where you put when you and I were talking, you made that short the other day where I said, whose credit card are they using? They're using our credit card, and we have no way of taking that credit card away.
No.
Can you imagine if we could freeze the government's bank account? That'd be sweet. You know, let's have a vote on it. All 40 million Canadians, who's in favor of stopping all spending? Done. You know, I'd love to, me personally, I'd love to write on my tax return when you're asking for more than I can give, and just, you know, write it in big red letters and say, sorry, I know I owe you taxes, but here's the, actually, weird topic.
Here's an IOU.
Yeah. On the topic of taxes, I always advise people, I do taxes for people, and I advise people, you should owe at the end of the year. I know some people hate the idea of writing a check to the government. They prefer getting a refund, right? But if you get a refund at the end of the year, it really means you gave the government too much money all year long and they're giving it back to you.
Yeah.
And as much as you hate writing a check to the government, that it is the way it should be. You know, they should have to come begging to you at the end of the year and saying, please write that last check. You didn't give us enough during the year, and you need to give us a little more. But
well, I think all of these schemes, like payroll taxes, like it's a way of trying to defeat the Laffer curve. It's a way of taxing people more than would typically be available, you know, based on the Laffer curve, by hiding it in your payroll. Most people, and this is what I would do if I, you know, you get that question, if you were able to make a law, what would you do? If you were able to just stroke of a pen, new law, I would make it illegal to do third-party payer taxes. You have to sign for all the taxes that you pay. And I'm talking everything. So you go to the pump and you have to hit on the thing, okay, I'm going to pay this much tax on that transaction before you can go on with the transaction. I would make it so you have to okay everything and actually pay your taxes on your own. Yep. Your income taxes, any GST, anything, make it visible as much as possible so people realize how much they're being taxed. And that's when the people will say, no.
And I like some industries do that. Like the natural gas and the electricity industry do that very well, right? Like when I get my power bill, I can see the cost of power, the cost of GST, carbon tax, other levies, and including some of the distribution fees. People get upset about them. I'm like, yeah, you're upset because you're seeing them. And when you see all the costs, that's great. It's great that you're upset because, you know, you've seen it. Along those lines, I'd love if the gas pump had made in Venezuela or made in Saudi Arabia logo on there, right? Make a person think like, you know, as you're fueling up your car and you want the premium or the unleaded or whatever, and have like, you know, this week brought to you by Venezuela kind of thing. Make people think twice about, and to your statement earlier, you're right. It is the taxes are about 50% now. They are about 50%, right? I mean, it doesn't take long. Like an average earning Canadian who owns a house, you're paying 22% federal tax. You're paying about between 11 and 13% provincial tax. So what is that? 20? You're up to 35%. If you own a house in most CPP, EI, if you own a house in most places, you add another, say, 5-6% in terms of municipal taxes. Then the GST on everything during the year, plus all the miscellaneous fees. It absolutely is not
hidden taxes in things like alcohol, and
not uncommon for a Canadian to pay 50% taxes. Not uncommon. Absolutely
it's unbelievable. Yeah. Anyway, before we're done here, quick, any predictions for 2025?
2024 for me was uneventful. I think it's ending on a nice note. I think 2025, I don't think we're going to wait until October for an election. I know I've been saying this. I probably said this last year, but I really think we're going to have an election before we're going to have a spring election. I'm going to go with that. We're going to have a spring election, March, April, May, somewhere around there.
Marty, where can people find you?
Marty Up North on Twitter. Absolutely. Yeah. I want an election in March, man. I know you guys, you're on that clan or that group that you want Trudeau eliminated, taking a severe defeat. I hope he gets defeated in a vote of non-confidence, that they don't have time to do a rapid change for a new leader, and then we run to an election right away, and then he gets defeated. Then we get all that win-win. We get to see him defeated, we get a change in government, and we can start resetting the clock and reversing all the damage. That would be a dream for me.